This is Arab Talk on KPOO 89.5 FM in San Francisco. This is Arab Talk with Jess and Jamal. I'm Jess Nam.
And I'm Jamal Dejani.
Jamal, we have a great show today. Later on in the show, we're going to be looking at an interview you did with Faisal Saleh, who's the founder of the Palestine Museum. He's going to be talking about his show From Palestine with Art. It's going to be part of the 59th International Art Exhibition, the Biennale from Venezia, from Venice. It's a great interview, and I'm really glad that we're going to be able to speak with Faisal. But before we get there, there's a lot of news going on, Jamal, that we're going to have to cover, including the so-called Negev Summit, in which four so-called Arab foreign ministers are meeting with the Israeli foreign minister in the Negev to talk about the peace. It's a very interesting collection from Bahrain, from UAE, from Egypt and Morocco, and the way the Hasbaristas are pitching it together with American Hasbaristas is very interesting. We'll be covering that. We'll be talking a little bit about what Michael Link said, who is the UN Special Rapporteur, who basically said Israel is an apartheid state in the occupied territories. And then finally, Jamal, we're going to be covering the situation in Ukraine and the war and occupation there. It's just devastating. And unfortunately, many of our predictions have proven to be accurate, and it's quite devastating. But let's start with the Negev Summit, which when I saw it, Jamal,
I call it the normalization summit, but
normalization, that's a nice way of putting it. But when I saw the headlines, this big breakthrough of Arabs and Israelis coming together to come together and celebrate a new beginning and to talk about peace, I thought, wow, the Arab League is coming. But it's really not that many people, Jamal. It's a handful of despotic, foreign ministers from despotic countries, Bahrain, UAE, Morocco. Well, we have a king in Morocco. He sent his foreign minister. And of course, the foreign minister from Egypt. It's a bit of a joke. The timing for me is very interesting. It's occurring at a time when Russia is basically destroying, Ukraine and occupying it. And Antony Blinken is also going to be there. But this patina of this celebratory Negev, summit, what's the reality? What's really going on, Jamal?
Well, you said two key words, I think, which are very important. Just one, the timing, and we'll talk about the timing, and then the other one is how it's been described. Okay, so this, just to summarize, you got the foreign ministers, top diplomats, of the United States, Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, four Arab countries convening in the Naqab Desert, otherwise known as the Negev Desert, today, on Monday and tomorrow. It's a 2-day summit. And the description is, they say, it's a display of unity against Iran, but also a summit to revive long-stalled peace making with the Palestinians. So
with
all of a sudden,
no Palestinians.
We're at the edge of a World War III between Russia and Ukraine, and now we're talking about Iran all of a sudden. That's one. And two, you have a summit, as you've said, a summit without Palestinians, with countries, with the exception of Egypt. Egypt is the only country that shares a border with historic Palestine. You got countries like Morocco and the UAE at both ends of the Arab world, which have really no impact on what goes on in Palestine. So that's, to me, the description is really kind of mind-boggling. And then the other part, we talk about the timing. The timing, okay, we've been talking about this just for the past several weeks. Every single credible human rights organization has classified Israel as an apartheid state. And now you have the rapporteur, the United Nations rapporteur, also saying, hey, and he goes on through a whole report. I mean, that's his job,
Right.
to study,
Right.
research, and report on something. and he talks about apartheid. So when you find Israel's back to the wall, when it's kind of on the international arena has been identified as an apartheid state, and we'll go through his report later on. And then you have these jokers, and that's the most polite word I can use on this show, showing up at this time to defend the apartheid regime. That's one. Two, think about, also we talked about the timing, but we didn't mention the place. Where is this happening? It's happening in the Naqab Desert, where we've reported on this very show about the ethnic cleansing of Bedouins. I mean, this has been going on for the past several months. Stories that has been reported, that have been reported in the Israeli media. I'm not talking about, about the ethnic cleansing of Bedouins, the destruction of their homes, etc. It's a major story within Israel itself, because remember, the Bedouins who live in the Naqab are Israeli citizens. You know, they classify them as Arab Israeli citizens. And again, you know, it's also happening, by the way, where the founder of Israel, Ben Gurion, is buried. You know, that's another. I mean, it's a lot of symbolism going there to produce this photo op, you know, of harmony and peace and collaboration, and then divert the Arab world's attention towards Iran as the enemy, not Israel as the occupier, the apartheid regime, and the only country to have introduced nuclear weapons to the Middle East.
Well said, Jamal. The other irony is that this is to confront Iran, but it's happening at a time when the United States is actively negotiating the nuclear peace agreement with the Iranians right now. So we see this kind of double screen, dual screen hypocrisy of the way it's being pitched in the American and Israeli media, and in some cases the international media, and the reality on the ground, which is that this is what I would call it is a summit of fools, because this does not represent the Arab world. The main stakeholder, Palestinians, are not at the table. It's occurring at this kind of really intense time when we're really on the verge of, you know, economic kind of devastation, not just for Russians, but, you know, for the whole globalized world. And yet it's being pitched as this large summit. I kind of know, and you and I kind of know what happened. The American administration gave marching orders to the Bahrainis, to the UAE, to the Egyptians, and to the King of Morocco, and said, you'd better show up. So they were told to show up. They showed up. They became part of this package. But what I would say, it's equally important who's not there. The Saudis are not there. The Qataris are not there. The rest of the 16 countries of the Arab League are not there. No significant Arab country foreign ministers are there. And of course, as we've been saying on multiple occasions, Palestinians are there. And I know I wouldn't want Bahrainis, Emiratis, Moroccans, or even Egyptians advocating for me in terms of peace in the region. So I think your analysis speaks volumes, Jamal. And really what this is about is because the apartheid state of Israel has its back against the wall. It's housing displaced Russian oligarchs, who have been, basically put on notice. We know that the apartheid regime is housing these people who the United States has put on a, banned list in terms of their economic assets, yet they have become Israeli citizens, or because they're Israeli citizens, they're now free to come and evade the economic sanctions that the United States has put on them. And of course, as you began with, the world condemnation from all these human rights organizations condemning Israel's apartheid practices against Palestine. It's embarrassing. So really what this is about, Jamal, it's about the headline. It's not about reality.
It's beyond embarrassing, Jess. I mean, here you have, again, an apartheid state, and then you have Arab representatives whitewashing its crimes. It's as simple as this. I mean, the timing could not have been any worse. The venue is horrible because this is where
It's
ethnic
terrible.
cleansing is happening on a daily basis.
Exactly.
And then there is no need for it. I mean, what peace are they talking about? What peacemaking? It's a peacemaking. I mean, who assigned Bahrain, as you've said, who assigned the UAE to speak on behalf of the Palestinians to discuss peace when there is no peace, when Palestinian homes are being destroyed on a daily basis, when the ethnic cleansing continues in Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan and other places? I mean, what peace are they talking about? I mean, who are they kidding? It's kind of like, photo op.
Yeah, I would say it's a photo op, but it's also an attempt to change the Israeli international narrative right now. They're doing so many dirty deals. They're the ones telling Zelensky to cut a deal with Russia, and it looks like Zelensky is going to do that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Housing of the oligarchs, which have supported Vladimir Putin for decades. And of course, the apartheid label that is sticking very strongly with Israel. I mean, it's an apartheid state through and through, and that's not going away, Jamal. So, what is the standard Hasbarista thing to do? Try to change the narrative. But I'll also say this idea about
you remember we used to use this, and I'm going to go back to this terminology. We used to use it at the show before, and people say, "Oh, why are you being so harsh?" House Arabs.
House Arabs. Well, I think that's too nice.
It's a photo up with House Arabs, and that's all I can say about it. But anyway, talking about Israel apartheid, we're moving on to the next story, which is basically the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights just says Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory is apartheid. And he calling on the international community to accept and adopt the recent findings in his report. On last Friday, he said that apartheid is being practiced by Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory. He goes on to say there is today in the Palestinian territory occupied by Israel since 1967 a deeply discriminatory dual legal and political system that privileges the 700,000 Israeli Jewish settlers living in the 300 illegal Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. And this is Michael Link, the UN Special Rapporteur for the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967. Now, that's not his job. His job, he wasn't assigned to what we call 1948 or historic Palestine. It's just his focus. But even with this, because, there are reports that say the entire country between, meaning the land between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River, is really one big apartheid state. And he focused basically on the territory occupied by Israel in 1967.
So it's a very detailed, extensive report, yet another nail in the coffin labeling Israel an apartheid state, Jamal. But let me just say, did you or did anybody see any headline about his report anywhere in the media?
Nowhere. Maybe,
did you hear that?
Maybe Reuters, again, wire services like Reuters, AP, put it out there. But as you know, especially mainstream media and networks and TV networks, they're now just focused, except for the past 24 hours, on the Oscars and the slapping that happened.
The slap heard around the world.
Yes, but it's been about Ukraine and Russia. So again, the timing. That's why Israel. But what they have been reporting on. They've been skipping through this and then just showing the photo up of the Arab foreign ministers and the Israeli foreign ministers and Blinken holding hands and singing Kumbaya.
Well, Jamal, here's the thing, though. I mean, the thing that's kind of ironic for me, given the kind of apartheid practice that Israel engages in historic Palestine, not to mention the war crimes that the Israeli military committed in Gaza, 2009, 2012, 2014. And by the way, the number of Palestinians killed over the course of that month is even greater than the number of Ukrainians that have been killed so far after a month of barrage from the Russian military. It just is beyond the pale for me to see the countries that are the so-called Arab countries who themselves have grotesque human rights records themselves. Bahrain is widely known to not just stifle free speech and any kind of opposition to the royal family there, but they use torture, they imprison people, and they squash any attempt to criticize.
They target the Shia mainly.
They target them. And listen, the same for Morocco, the same for Egypt and the UAE. Oh my God, they're supplying all the weapons that not all, but many of the weapons that are engaged in destroying Yemen right now. And again, another thing that doesn't get a lot of play, the Yemenis that are captured, many of them are brought to the UAE and tortured mercilessly by the Emirati security services. So I'm just saying, Jamal, like this is a who's who list of thugs. It's a who's who list of war criminals. It's a who's who list of people who don't believe in democracy and the rule of law. So it's kind of ironic that this is the show of Arab unity.
So going back to the rapporteur, like I said, his report was very extensive. And actually, what I didn't talk about is he also talked about Gaza.
Yeah.
And he reiterates that it is an open air prison,
Yes.
mentioning the lack of rights of people living in the same vicinity separated by walls, checkpoints, etc. And he goes, another 2 million Palestinians live in Gaza, described regularly as an open-air prison without adequate access to power, water, or health, with a collapsing economy and with no ability to freely travel to the rest of Palestine or the outside world. He ran through the internationally understood legal definition of apartheid, just a system of institutionalized racial segregation practiced in South Africa prior to its dismantling in the early 1990s. And he said, this is a quote from him, apartheid is not, sadly, a phenomenon confined to the history books on Southern Africa.
It's wow.
And then he goes on to the apartheid in Palestine and talks about what defines apartheid. He goes on it's a political regime, talking about Israel, which so intentionally and clearly prioritizes fundamental political, legal, and social rights to one group over another within the same geographic unit on the basis of one's racial, national, ethnic identity. I mean, I don't know what else. The report there, he talks about the 1998 Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, discusses that again, goes back discussing it when, talking about the law that came into place after the collapse of the old South Africa regime. And then he starts talking about Israel's implementation of apartheid in the territories it occupied in 1967.
So my question, Jamal, for you and for the world is, what more evidence does the world want? What more evidence does Antony Blinken want? What more evidence does the Security Council and the General Assembly at the United Nations want? What more do people want when the entirety of the human rights world and the United Nations Special Rapporteur all unanimously agree that Israel is a practicing apartheid state? And yet they get a free pass, and yet they're celebrated for doing this peace negotiation with people who they're occupying, who are not even at the table. It's a level of disgust that I think all of us feel right now, that not just the timing, but the hypocrisy of it all is just mind-blowing to me. It's like, okay, world, when are you going to wake up to this? And I want to go back to Gaza, Jamal. I mean, it's not lost on many of us about the images that were, and because this will transition to Ukraine here in a minute, it's not lost on many of us the images of Mariupol and Kharkiv that are completely devastated remind many of us about what happened in Gaza in 2009, 12, and 2014, the devastation that was brought to Gaza, the buildings that were destroyed, the infrastructure that was destroyed, the men, the women, the children that were killed. But here's the difference, Jamal. Ukrainians can leave, and Palestinians living in Gaza never could. So, you know,
Well, I mean, more I would say in the difference that Ukrainians can leave, and they are received with open arms in Poland and other places, and provided with food and shelter, etc. Ukrainians also are given weapons to defend themselves,
and are celebrated for defending themselves against occupation, whereas we know the narrative about Palestinians are not allowed to defend themselves. And, you know, for me, tragically, you know, you and I have been there, I've worked there, I've done, you know, public health and global health work in Gaza. I saw the devastation firsthand. And that I could tell you that, you know, as you said, Ukrainians are welcomed with open arms, and Palestinians in Gaza who are devastated, killed, injured, with infrastructure destroyed, continue to be ignored by this world, Jamal. And not just Palestinians, sadly, but, you know, we talked about this last week. Poland is being celebrated for welcoming all of these Ukrainian refugees, but it was Poland and many of the surrounding NATO countries who blocked Syrian refugees and made them live in tents, many of whom, you know, perished from waiting and were not allowed to become, you know, who were not allowed to be welcomed with open arms and given comfort. So, you know, the differences, the racism and the racial differences between good refugees, bad refugees, legal refugees, illegal refugees is just, it's just staggering.
I was going to say the difference is blue eyes and blonde hair.
Full stop, man. Full stop. Blue hair and blonde eyes.
Well, on this topic, just two important things happened. I want to kind of touch on these since we're talking about the Ukraine and Russia, because we've been reporting on it every week. First one to me was like President Joe Biden last Saturday said that Russian leader Vladimir Putin cannot remain in power, basically ratcheting up international pressure and further united NATO allies against Putin over the invasion. I mean, what do you? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
well,
a lot of people were stunned.
Yeah, but he walked it. They walked it back.
Yeah, but you know, the United States.
But he did double down on it today, Jamal, because I will say that President Biden was asked today, what does he stand by his comment? And basically what he said is that, yeah, I stand by my comment. We don't believe in regime change. We're just saying Putin can't remain in power.
What's that? What's that? That's not regime change.
I mean, I think, you know, they're saying it and walking it back at the same time. So they're getting away with it, yet trying to walk it back. It's a very bold statement. Unfortunately, Jamal, as I've been saying, as we've been saying, if you think that's going to put any kind of pressure on Vladimir Putin, you're completely wrong. Putin is not only going to double down, he's going to triple down. And despite everything that has been said about, oh, well, he's scaling back, the Ukrainians are fighting off in Kyiv and all of this, the kind of horrible reporting still that we're seeing, Ukraine is being devastated. You have 4 million refugees now. You have Mariupol, which is completely devastated. You have Russia now in complete control of the eastern side of Ukraine, and, you know, not only controlling the corridor with the quote disputed regions, but from Mariupol all the way up to the Donbas region in the eastern part of Ukraine is under Russian control. And Kyiv is getting bombed. Mariupol is devastated, and whatever kind of celebration that you're hearing about how great the Ukrainian army is, and they're very brave, don't get me wrong, Russia is laying waste to Ukraine right now, Jamal. And as we speak, the they're talking about peace. And the big news for me, Jamal, Zelensky is willing to talk about caving in.
That's actually the second change that I see, major change besides Biden's statement and visit to Poland, is Zelensky saying that his government is prepared to discuss adopting, and this time he's been specific, adopting a neutral status as part of a peace deal with Russia. And this is in an interview with independent Russian journalist Vladimir Zelensky said that such a deal would have to be put to a referendum in the Ukraine. He made these comments before, but this time he said it very forcefully. I think this is a quote here: security guarantees and neutrality, non-nuclear, he talks non-nuclear status of our state. We are ready to go for it. This is the most important point. This is in a 90-minute video call he had.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Jamal. Putin is going to see that as weakness.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't care if he sees it as a weakness, because Zelensky could have made this statement a month ago, in February, like around mid-February, and we wouldn't have had all this destruction.
Well, as death. We've been saying for weeks, Jamal, the West and NATO threw Zelensky and the Ukrainians under the bus. They gave them all this verbal support that they would help them. They threw them under the bus. Ukraine is destroyed right now. And Zelensky could talk all he wants about, becoming neutral, but the Donbass region, Odessa, Mariupol, that whole eastern side, including, all the coastal areas, going down to Crimea. Putin is never going to give that up. It's just not going to happen.
So you don't think the statement or sitting down and talking about neutrality, and again, neutrality means that a country does not ally itself militarily with others, kind of like Switzerland. Switzerland cannot be part of NATO. So right. You are saying that this is not going to satisfy Putin.
No, because Putin is going to destroy further Ukraine. There's all these ideas that maybe he'll divide it like an armistice between, that we have between North and South Korea, that now Ukraine will be divided. But I just have news for anybody who's listening. Putin is not going to stop. In fact, today, the breaking news that we should tell our viewers and our listeners is that it looks like Putin has attempted to poison the Ukrainian peace delegation in Turkey right now. There's reports that some of them have been poisoned. And Abramovich, the Russian Israeli oligarch that is on the list of economically banned people, he looks like, and this is initial reporting by the Wall Street Journal, that he too may have been poisoned by Russian operatives.
But it's in the Ukraine. They're saying that this happened like a month ago during his visit to Ukraine, to Kyiv. But
it's kind of a big deal, though, that there was the attempt to poison the peace negotiators and Abramovich. So if anybody believes that Putin is going to stop anything, I believe they're delusional. He's going to take the whole eastern side. He's going to drag on the negotiations. As long as possible. He's going to squeeze Ukrainians. There's also reports that some Ukrainians have been taken into Russia and put into camps, so that, that we're talking about forced population transfer, which is illegal, again, under international law. So I don't know about you, Jamal, but Putin doesn't look, sound, or walk or talk like a person who's really afraid of economic sanctions right now or is changing anything.
Well, we're going to be talking about this again next week, like we've been doing it for the past 4 weeks. Jess, it doesn't seem that this is going to come to a quick resolution anytime soon. So we had a great interview, Jess, and this is actually a major achievement for the Palestine Museum in Woodbridge, Connecticut. We've had the founder before on our show to talk about the museum itself and its own shows, etc. But now they were able to pull a very important feat, I would say, and it's another achievement and another benchmark that's going to happen in April 23rd, when a collateral event entitled "From Palestine with Art" opens as an official part of the 59th International Art Exhibition La Biennale di Venezia in Venice, Italy. Isn't this exciting?
I would say it's a major, major accomplishment, and Faisal Saleh needs to be celebrated. It's a great interview, Jamal. I think let's take a look at it and listen to what you and Faisal spoke about.
The Palestine Museum in Woodbridge, Connecticut is the only museum in the Western Hemisphere dedicated to showcasing art of all genres by Palestinian artists. It was founded in 2018 by our guest Faisal Saleh. The museum's mission is celebrating and showcasing Palestinian artistic excellence and telling the Palestinian story to a global audience through the arts. Since the museum opened, public interest and the number of visitors has far exceeded Saleh's expectations, with visitors coming from as far as 30 countries throughout the world. The Palestine Museum is achieving another benchmark this April 23rd when a collateral event entitled "From Palestine with Art" opens as an official part of the 59th International Art Exhibition La Biennale di Venezia in Venice, Italy. Welcome back to Arab Talk, Faisal.
Thank you.
So let's start. Tell us about this, the Venice Biennale. Why is it so significant that Palestinian artists have a presence there?
The Venice Biennale is the most prestigious art event in the world. If you participate in the Venice Biennale, it's like being on the Olympics team or being nominated to an Oscar. It's such an important art event that gathers the who's who in the art world. First of all, the event is 7 months long, from April 23rd through November 27th. And approximately 600,000 people visit the Biennale during those 7 months. So it's a huge audience. During the first 3 days that precedes the Biennale, 25,000 art critics, art collectors, and members of the press visit during the 3-day preview period. And that's the most concentration of art aficionados in the world. So that's what's important about the Biennale. The second important thing is for Palestine to be represented at this level. By this level, mean by an institution such as the Palestine Museum US, it is a first time. Now, there've been other participations by Palestinians in the Biennale, and they consisted often of either individual participation of artists, 2 artists making one exhibit, 3 artists, and there's been as many as 7 artists making a presentation, but it's never been an institutional participation at the museum level like we are, with 19 artists and over 30 works of art.
So this is really a major breakthrough. I mean, what do you want visitors from Palestine with Art to take away from the exhibit? What do you hope to achieve?
Well, we hope to achieve a few things, depending on who the visitors are. So let's take visitors who are Palestinian or who are supporters of the Palestinians from other Arab countries. First of all, we are hoping to strengthen the Palestinian identity by creating this show on top of the art world. So we want Palestinians to feel very proud that they are standing shoulder to shoulder with exhibitions from 80 other countries around the world and 215 other artists handpicked by the curator of the Biennale to participate. Now, Palestine is not eligible to participate as a country. So we cannot have a pavilion, we cannot have a national presentations. So the collateral event is the only avenue open for us to participate at a high level. And that's why we applied for the collateral event. And among all the applications, we were selected along with 29 other collateral events. So we're one.
What's the reason that Palestine cannot participate as a country?
It's very simple. There's a rule that says only countries that are recognized by Italy can participate in the Biennale. And unfortunately, Italy does not recognize Palestine as a state. And there's been a lot of noise about that. But that's that's a fact of life that we have to deal with. And we were able to get around that by getting selected as what they call a collateral event. And a collateral event is a significant exhibition that the curator of the Biennale, and this time her name is Cecilia Almani, believes that the collateral events will enrich the value of the exhibit and the community and provide additional depth to the event. And that's the explanation for why there are collateral events there. And we obviously were quick to take advantage of the opportunity. Getting accepted is not easy. It took a lot of work and several months of applications and submission of information. And we had to create an entire exhibition before we could even submit the application.
Right. Was any of the artwork created with this event specifically in mind? I mean, in addition to the amazing artwork, which I was able to see some pieces on the published book online, cultural heritage and diaspora has a significant presence in it. Was that your intention, or was this a collaborative realization with the Biennales and the museum's curators?
No, I think first of all, let me answer your simple question, which is, yes, there were several works of art that were created specifically for the Biennale. The most notable of them is Samia Halabi's painting. That's the red bright painting that is called Venetian Red. That was definitely created for the Biennale, and Samia took it on her own to create some very special work for that. And then, I'm sorry, I lost track of the rest of your question.
No, I was just saying, you've talked about, the amazing work, cultural heritage and diaspora has a significant presence.
Yes, and now we have a curator at the Palestine Museum, US. Her name is Nancy Nesbitt, and she and I work hand in hand together as a team on creating this exhibition. And we put our heads together, and we identified a number of things that we wanted to get across. First, we don't want to be portrayed as the helpless victim that Palestinians often get portrayed as. We want to show people the beauty of Palestine, and we want to show them how Palestinian artists paint hope and determination and faith in the future. So we want people to see the beauty of Palestine and the determination of its people. In addition, we also wanted to stress that the Palestinian identity and the uniqueness of it, and how it is really supported by the Palestinian culture. So part of there are maybe 10 different elements in the exhibit that is intended to achieve specific goals. And I'm just going to go through them quickly, if you permit me here.
Sure.
So one of those is we have two very important Palestinian embroidered dresses from the important collection of Hanan and Farah Munayyer. They have one of the largest Thobes collections. So they pick two of the best items in their collection, and those are going to be exhibited in acrylic cases on the floor of the exhibit. And that's really to highlight the importance of the embroidery to the Palestinian identity. Second, we wanted to express a very strong feeling about Palestine and what Palestine is. So we selected the title of the exhibit to be From Palestine with Art. It appears as a very simple title, but when you examine the preposition from is used to indicate a location, a place, and a real place. So From Palestine tells people there is a Palestine and it exists and it's real and it has been and will always be. And that's a very important part of the exhibit. Now, to even strengthen that further, we have selected a map of Palestine that goes back to 1877 that was prepared and published by the Palestinian cartographer Salman Abu Sitteh. And that map, there's a huge version of it that's going to be placed on the floor of the exhibit hall, and people are going to be able to walk over it and go to where their towns are and look at it. Now,
just to be clear, because I've seen this map in a different way by Salman Abu Sitteh, he specifically spent years documenting and putting, towns and villages that have disappeared now.
All I could tell you is that that's the latest version of his map. And the important thing about this map is that it does not have a single Israeli settlement. There's not a single Zionist structure on the map, and Zionism did not even exist when that map was originally created. So we are showing Palestine as Palestine was before it was cut up and crisscrossed with Israeli settlements and checkpoints and other geographical obstacles that were creating to divide up Palestinians into manageable small pieces that Israel could swallow and eventually erase. So that map is not just on the floor of the exhibit hall. It is the cover of the exhibit book. There is a book that has all the photos and write-ups and essays about all the artwork in the exhibit. And that book is going to be published in about a couple of weeks. And the cover of the book, I think I shared a copy with you, shows that map of Palestine from 1877. And again, it's a historical map. And it says Palestine on it. And I know there's going to be some challenges to that from the other side, but this is a piece of art and it's a piece of history. And in 1877, there was no Israel and there was no Zionism and there were no settlements. And that's the map we're showcasing at the Venice Biennale. And that's the map that's going to be on the cover of the book. So that's really a very strong thing. Now, in addition to that, we have a live tree that's in the center of the exhibit hall. It's about 5 feet high. And the live tree, which will be watered for 7 months and kept alive, has keys hanging from its branches. And these keys are keys that the Palestinian refugees in 1948 took with them, hoping that they will come back in about 3 weeks or a month or so to their homes. And 73 years later, they still haven't been able to return to their homes. But those keys remain, and we are highlighting the significance of those keys and how they represent the right of return for Palestinians right on the tree in the middle of the exhibit. There's a lot of symbolism and a lot of concepts that are being exhibited there. In addition to that, we're going to have Palestinian music playing in the background. We're also going to have some oral histories available for people who want to listen to them by reading them from a QR code on the wall. And a variety of paintings, including 9 portraits of important Palestinians that were painted by a Palestinian artist who lives in Europe.
And this is gonna go on for 7 months. Do you
7
have
months.
do you have a role other than oversight once the Biennale opens? Is there an opening ceremony?
Well, we intend to have an opening ceremony, and also we have organized, because this falls during Ramadan, we have organized an iftar ceremony at the end of the first day. The first day that's open to the public is April 23rd. So that evening, we are going to have an iftar with Palestinian food served. And after the iftar, we are going to have a musical event where we have some Palestinian musicians playing and singing songs. And then we will all celebrate the start of that exhibit.
Tell us about the venue the exhibit is displayed. One can see the exhibit by going to Venice, obviously in person through, I guess, November 27th. But is there a virtual component for viewing the exhibit?
Not as of today, because we have been busy and focusing on creating the actual exhibit and all the things that go with it. However, we are mindful of the need for that and contemplating creating some virtual access that will give people an idea what the exhibit looks like. But when we do that, we want to do it really in a very creative way, something befit of the exhibit itself. And we will have something on that later on. Now, the venue is a historic building in Venice that is managed by an organization called European Cultural Center, ECC, and it's made up of about 3 floors of exhibit halls that people contract for them. And we have contracted for an exhibit hall that's room number 8, and the building is called Palazzo Mora. Palazzo Mora, and our exhibit hall is on the first level of the building, and we are the only collateral event. We're the only official collateral event in that entire building. And because the Venice Biennale has very strict requirements, each collateral event has to be labeled very clearly. So on the front of the building, it says collateral event, and it has our name and the name of our exhibit. And each entrance to that room, which has 3 entrances, has a sign before you enter that says you are entering a Venice Biennale official exhibition, to make sure that the people don't confuse other exhibits thinking that they're part of the official Biennale.
The venue sounds lovely. One of your main objectives is to help increase the value of Palestinian artwork through exposure. How does value accrue to artwork for collectors?
Well, anytime you put on an event like this with such visibility, anything that's exhibited there is going to take on a special value of itself immediately. People are going to want to own some of the pieces that appeared in this exhibit because they are pieces of history, pieces of Palestinian history. And we do have very unique pieces in there, like the Nabil Anani has a 3-meter wide landscape of Palestine that is beautiful, attractive, and really is an iconic view of what Palestine looks like. And I'm sure people who have the means would like to own that because it's a unique thing. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have something like that. So is Samia's work, so is the work of all the other artists. So in general, the works that get exhibited in Venice fetch a much higher price than if we were sold in Ramallah, for instance. In addition, these things are going to gain exposure to all the art collectors around the world as they come to Venice, and to all the big name galleries that they're going to become aware. And these artists that are exhibited there are going to receive a lot of attention. And not just them, but all the other Palestinian artists, no matter where they are, that genre of art, the Palestinian art, is going to have increased interest in it because of the fact that it's being exhibited at Venice in such a big way. And we believe that the Palestinian artists as a whole will benefit from this opportunity. And we hope that they'll be able to sell more art on the world market.
So the Palestine Museum has also created a beautiful book that with a profile of each artist and some of their work. When will this be available for purchase?
Okay, we're taking pre-orders right now on our website, palestinemuseum.us. People can place pre-orders. The books physically will be in the US, I would say in May. I'm actually right now sitting in the building of a printing company in Verona, Italy, where the book is going to be printed like in a couple of days. I've been going over proofs and looking at the images and making corrections and things like that. But the book will be printed this week and it will be bound next week. It's a hardcover book that's 30 centimeter by 30 centimeters. That's 12 inch by 12 inch square. And it is intended to be a coffee table book that has 48 pages, and each artist has 2 pages about their work and about themselves. Now, in addition, the book is also available in what we call a European delivery. So somebody can buy it and pick it up at the Venice Biennale during the 7 months. We will stock our exhibit hall with these books, and people can pick them up. Just like you can buy a Mercedes and pick it up in Germany, for instance.
Right.
We call that a European delivery. So it's a little joke, sorry.
Well, it sounds great, and people can go to your website. Can you say your website again for more information and keep basically track of what's going on?
Yes, PalestineMuseum.us. And if you want to order the book, you click on Shop Books, and then the book will come up, and you can place an order for the book, and you will receive it in May in the US. We're only shipping to the US and making deliveries at the Venice Biennale for people who anticipate being there during those 7 months. They can pick it up and take it with them on the way home.
Faisal Saleh, we wish you the best of luck, and thank you for coming on Arab Talk.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope to see as many people as possible at the Venice Biennale. And also, we are still hopeful to do some fundraising, and we would appreciate people making donations to our effort. The budget for this is very high, as you can imagine, and every bit of help would be most appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's the voice and the face of Faisal Saleh. He's the
Saleh.
founder. Saleh. He's the founder of the Palestine Museum. He scored this major coup as being part of the Biennale, the 59th Biennale in Venezia. It's something to really celebrate and be proud of, Jamal.
I mean, this is, according to his description, this is like making it to the Oscars. This is the biggest event.
For art?
For art.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is. It's beyond the Oscars. The Venice Biennale, Jamal, is where it's the major art event in the world.
Well, it's also a major achievement aside from having all these different Palestinian artists just making it. Is sadly, up till today, Italy does not recognize Palestine as a state.
No, it doesn't.
So it doesn't. So that's why it had to be done in a very smart way. It's part of a collateral event, and to have this many artists and different genre represented. And I wish you and I are in Italy. Hopefully we will be in Italy, but it's going to be there for the next 7 months.
Inshallah.
It runs through November, so if you
I would love to see it.
To go there, you can see it in person.
We'll get the link and we'll post it, Jamal, because we'll be able to watch it, virtually too.
And there is also a book, so people can go to the Palestine Museum, just Google that, the Palestine Museum in Woodbridge, Connecticut. They have, now they're taking pre-orders for the book with publishing with the different pieces of art that's going to be there, and all information about the event.
Well, another great show, Jamal. We had a lot to talk about today. We're going to always have a lot to talk about, and I want to thank our listeners and viewers for joining us again today.
You've been listening to Arab Talk on KPOO San Francisco 89.5 FM. Go to our website, arabtalkradio.com, to download the latest episodes, and we will talk to you next week.
We'll see you next week.